Ava remained seated on the bed, facing the window. As the outside world changed from day to night, her once vibrant eyes were now red and swollen from countless tears that she had shed. During the Lundy ball, Aziza, the Max, came into the SOMWRTH a tray of food, passed as she had done for breakfast. Aziz had tried her best to encourage Ava to eat, but she refused to touch the food that had no appetite, no desire to eat. Ava had never thought she would miss her everyday life this much. She's the moment she had attended Miss Wedding. If only she had made a different choice, perhaps she wouldn't be trapped in this nightmare. Ava had been so lost in her thoughts she didn't realize Alex Sorocone had entered in the room. A sudden pat on her shoulder made her her gaze fall upon an elderly lady, adorned with diamonds jewelry. The lady smiled warmly and asked, "Why hasn't you eaten da?" But Ava didn't feel any warmth. Maybe she had elsewhere to feel anything in one day. Ava finally found her thoughts. She asked, "Who were you?" The lady's smile temed as Bration's mother responded, "I'm Aria Rahman, dear. You can call me Aunt Elise if you'd like." Fim. Aval's eyes widened. Ava couldn't believe her senses. She turned her head toward Alex, seeking confirmation. "You're his mother?" Alio nodded and sat before her on the bed. Her smirk remained on her face. Ava pleaded, "Please tell your son to free me from here. I want to go home, can't want to stay here." Alia gently wiped us. "This is your home from now on. Aram won't let you go, net now. Stop thinking about returning to your old life." Avenue's hands trembled, and she pulled her fans away from a discomforting touch. Rising from the bed, she confronted Alice. "What kind of mother are you? Can't you see your son is doing something terrible? Doesn't it bother you that your son kidnapped me from my apartment?" Alia took a measured breath and met Axel's gaze. "No, everything you're saying, you don't need to explain." Avenue couldn't condemn her frustration. She exclaimed, 7 feet they been looked in the room burlesque wrecked. How can you accept your son's deed easily? Do you think these are normal? Alia replied with a matter-of-fact song, "You can't have to be locked in this room if you cooperate and refrain from attempting to escape. You are my son's choice and I won't interfere." Avo questioned, "What do you mean, hick choice? Am I just an object that your son likes and brings home?" Alia maintained her calm. She was not a person who got angry easily. She said, "Dear, you have no idea how frustrating is with you. Don't cry too much, you'll only hurt yourself." Ava couldn't fathom Faratis' complacency. Bastian doesn't justify his action. "I have a leader, a family, a future. H is trying to ruin everything. How can you be okay with that?" Alia's calm smile did waver as she replied, "Ava, you have no choice in this matter. My son has decided, and begels what you can either make your stay here more comfortable or face hardship. The choice is yours." Ava, holding back tears, asked, "Can't you see how crazy this? I have a life, dreams, and people who care about me. You can't just take that away." Alia nodded like she understood but stayed firm. "Ayo, I can't change my son's mind. Have to accept this situation." Ava couldn't be a coward like this. No, she couldn't. "I won't give up, Mrs. Rahman. Find a way out, and your son will have answer for what he did." Alien added for a moment, but she left the mum without saying more before going. "Oh Sard, tin what you need to, but remember that wakeaping isn't an option. Too." Graham's Alik Black Var sped down on the road. His phone buzzed with an Makaring call. It was Haroon calling, and when Haroon called visually meant there were issues to address. Brutum answered via Bluetooth. Through him Haroon's voice crackled over the lees. TVE got news for you. Branham's firm grip on the steering wheel didn't waver, but he knew that when Harun called with nows, it was rarely good. Go on, Ibrahim repeated. Harun continued, we've managed to making progress at momently 80% of the arms we lost. It wasn't easy, but we're. Ibrahim nodded his grip on the steering wheel. Tim, good work. Hamon, what's core next move? We need to lay low for a while, Harian replied. The authorities are still looking for us, and we don't want to attract more attention. We should conmong some of our operations to a different location. Thratham considered Harun's words. We'll need to make some strategic changes to keep our Basmasu Ra. Mathli. Harun continued, one more thing, Thechim, I found out who tipped off the Orthots about our operation. Ibrahim's GRP on the steering wheel tightened. Tell me. The Tratter is one of the guards at your house, the Rahman mansion. His name is Kamir Ahmad, Harun revealed. Tell me more, he demanded, a faint edge of frustration lacing his tone. Kawama motivations are clear. He's tempted by the lure of money, and it's code Ustwadi Harun Sharadha. Details. The revelation left a bitter taste in Ibrahim's mouth. He had always been meticulous about choosing live people. That Calm had been awayed by a few greenbacker was a nervous betrayal. Well, deal with Karam Separals, Brahim said with cold determination. But not before he pays for Tus betrayal. Finally, Assam approached the grand gates of the Rahmanshan. He glanced at the Manstons and told, we'll continue to talk later. Understood. Brahim. Tarko Kaur, Harun said. Ibrahim honored the call and parked his car. Ibrahim encored the mansion, his stops echoing in the grand foyer. He was met by Aziza, who took care of the household. Aziza cleaned her throat and said with a soft "V nice senior, the girl the han't saran anything whole day. They tried to convince her, but she wised. Frahim's shootiers sagged as he realized an Ava's stubhamnans. He lat rudder deep, ortight sigh, dive me the plane 18. Franfay. Aziza Isvel fetched a plate, laden with steamed rice, and a addy of sambal and handed to Brian. With the plate hand, Ibrahim proceeded down the hallway and reached Ava's Rast. He unlocked the door. As he entered, his gaze landed on the signs of her sleeping form. She was called up Ima in UN the bod, her hood rooting against the wall. Her face became red and puffy for orating. Ibrahim stood near the door for a moment. He couldn't help but wonder just how much Orzan she had been through since he had brought her here. After gently closing the door behind him, Ibrahim placed the plate on the nearby tea table and approached Ava. Brahim delicately barred a strand of hair away from Wa, slimed slightly when she feels her vac. She opened her eyes and her Gaza mar Ibrahim's surprise and Contalonhi expression as if she had expected anyone but him. Ava moved quickly to put more distance between them. She moved as far from him as possible, as if trying to create pre-ankle Barma. Hetvort quivered with a blend of anger and fear as she confronted him. How dare you touch me? T. Brahim observed her reaction. He took the plate and placed the plate of food within his reach. He told Lat Ava. She turned her head away and spoke, won't eat, I'm not hungry. Ibrahim's eyes shock with socration. Ava, I'm not going to play the nice guy any longer. You need to. Ava held her ground. She looked up and her gaze locked Omo his. What will you do if I don't cat? Frahimi's smirk rode his resolve. He leaned closer to Ava, his hands resting on her side of her on the daha. Effectively caged her against the wall. The back against the wall, felt a surge of fear as he came closer, tie faces inches apart. He said, "Doll have to show demot." Ava couldn't help but tremble. "Don't come near me," Ain whispered, her breath oven, and her heart racing. Ibrahim's voice grew firmer as he pressed HVE advantage. "Then tell me you'll eat." Ava reluctantly nodded. "Till now, which character is your favorite? There will be more characters later. The new day has begun." Alara entered the police station, the usual clatter of phones, chatter, and hurried footsteps surrounding him in his usual navy blue uniform. He was looking so tensed and tired. He had a purpose in mind today, to find out who was behind the mysterious phone number provided by the security guard. Making his way to a computer station, he sat down and swiftly began his search. Alara went through the Polis database interface, entering the phone number in question. The database was extensive, contained a vast amounts of information on various individuals. Finally, the search results came back. The name associated with the number was Rafi Ahmed. Alara's brow furrowed as he read further. Rafi Ahmed had a criminal record, including charges for kidnapping and murder. He had spent 5 years in prison in the past. Alara felt a rush of anxiety. If Ava was in any way involved with someone like Rafi Ahmed, it could mean she was in serious danger. He clenched his fists. The worry and anxiety were unbearable. He began to bang his head lightly with his hand in frustration. His headache, which had been a dull throb, now intensified. He had to take immediate action, and his first job was to reach out to a fellow police officer who was known for his expertise in missing persons cases, Michael. He dialed Michael's number, and the officer arrived promptly. Michael entered Alara's office, his face reflecting the concern he felt for his colleague and friend. He nodded to Alara and asked, "What's going on, Alara? You look troubled." Alara wasted no time and began to explain the situation. "I've been trying to find my sister, Ava. She's gone missing. And I got this number from the security guard in our apartment building. I traced it back to a man named Rafi Ahmed, who has a criminal record for kidnapping and murder. He's been to prison." Michael furrowed his brows, his mind racing as he processed the information. "Kidnapping and murder. That's serious, Alara. We need to act fast. Can you share all the information you have on this guy?" Alara quickly handed over the details he had gathered about Rafi Ahmed. Michael examined the information carefully and nodded. "I'll get on this right away. We'll launch a missing person report for Ava, and I'll lead the investigation. Rest assured, we'll do everything we can to locate her." A gloomy atmosphere pervaded the room. The passage of time seemed to crawl. Ava found herself in the bathroom, her eyes naturally drawn to a small window near the ceiling. This window offered a glimpse of the outside world through frosted glass. She considered the possibility of escaping through the window, but the risk was big as it's noon. Someone easily could spot her escape attempt in daylight. Then, she heard the familiar sound of the door unlocking. She emerged from the bathroom to find a young man standing in front of her. He was dressed in an oversized blue hoodie and blue trousers. Behind him was Aziza, who set a plate of food on the table before leaving the room. The young man introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Samir, Ibrahim's younger brother. He left for the office early today, and he wanted me to make sure you eat everything." 3 eat later, Avenue replied. She took a seat on the edge of the bed, her gaze fixated on the window. Samir hesitated before stating, "I can't leave until you eat. It's my brother's orders." Ava couldn't help but vent her frustration and said, "Doesn't your brother have any other work?" She closed her eyes for a brief moment. She was growing increasingly frustrated with the suffocating control that Ibrahim seemed to have over her every move. Samir shrugged his shoulders and replied, "Right now, taking care of you is Ibrahim's top priority." Ava turned towards Samir, a hint of mockery in her voice as she remarked, "Taking care of me? Oh, how considerata! Taking care of me after kidnapping me." Samir attempted to defend his brother. "Ibrahim isn't a bad person. His methods may be questionable, but in his heart, you've taken a significant place." Still bewildered and frustrated, Ava stood up from the bed and quipped, "Is your whole family insane? Nobody here seems to be normal. Do you even have any kind of humanity? I understand you might be confused, sister-in-law, but—" The moment the word sister-in-law left Samir's lips, Avenue's world seemed to spin. She clenched her jaw and interrupted him with a mix of disbelief and anger. "What did you just say?" Samir gulped nervously. Despite being the younger brother of a Mafia figure like Ibrahim, he felt a pang of fear as he saw Ava's enraged expression. He stammered, "I said sister-in-law, Karati address you that because Ibrahim intends to marry you." Ava's shock was palpable. Her mouth fell open, and her gaze turned wide as she sought confirmation. "He wants to marry me." Ava's frustration bubbled over, and she impulsively grabbed a large glass vase from the table and held it high in the air. It looked as though she might hurl it at Samir any moment. With her voice filled with anger, she demanded another repetition. "What did you just say? Say it again." Samir, now truly terrified, he took a few steps towards the door. "It was better to leave her alone." "No, no, don't throw that at Mel. You can ask my brother. He's the one who—" But Ava's fury couldn't be controlled. Before Samir could finish his plea, she hurled the vase toward him. He reacted quickly, unlocking the door and escaping from the room just in the nick of time. The glass vase collided with the door, shattering into 1,000 pieces. Ava shouted through the locked door, "Tell your brother he'll escape from here soon." Samir quickly dashed upstairs to his room, where his heart was still pounding from the encounter with Ava. He had never seen a woman like Ava. He picked up his phone and dialed Ibrahim's number while lying on the bed. "Hello, brother," Samir began. "You're not going to believe what just happened here." Moments later, Ibrahim's deep voice came through the phone. "Samir, what's the matter?" He was engrossed in a discussion with Faisal. "Important project." "Brother, you won't believe what just happened. You brought a bomb into this house," Samir replied. Ibrahim's eyes widened in alarm. "A bomb? What are you talking about? Explain quickly, Samir." Samir took a deep breath, then blurted out, "Well, you see, I was trying to do that thing you asked me to do, so, Aziza Aunt and I went to her room, and while I was talking to her, I accidentally called her sister-in-law." There was a brief pause on the line, and then Ibrahim's deep voice came through. "You did what, Samir? Especially in this situation, why would you call her sister-in-law out of the blue?" Samir continued, "Well, Ibrahim, here's the kicker. Because I called her sister-in-law, she decided to use a glass vase as a projectile. She almost turned my handsome face into a Picasso painting. I had to dive out of the room to save myself." Ibrahim couldn't help but chuckle at the ridiculousness of it all. He leaned back in his office chair, earning curious glances from Faisal. "So, you called her sister-in-law and she nearly turned your face into modern art with a glass vase?" Samir chuckled. "Exactly. She threatened to turn me into an avant-garde masterpiece if I didn't get out of there quickly." Ibrahim managed to compose himself and called, "Keep me updated if anything else happens. And please, don't call her sister-in-law again unless you want to test your luck." Samir agreed, "I've learned my lesson, brother'll be more cautious." The evening had descended, shrouding the Rahman mansion in darkness. Ava had been biding her time, waiting for the right moment to escape. Her gaze fixed on the small window at the top in the bathroom. In the window, the glass was sealed with pudding. She returned to the room and glanced around for anything that could help her. Her gaze fell on the broken pieces of glass vases. She approached the broken vase and picked up a piece. The jagged edge felt cool against her trembling fingers. She stared at the shard. She mused, "There's no turning back now. You can do it, Ava. You can." Ava retraced her steps back to the bathroom. She climbed onto the toilet, her feet cold against the porcelain, and reached for the reserve tank for additional support. What if I fail? What if they catch me? Ava's mind started to question. No, I must take this chance. I let anyone to torture me. Ava climbed further, her breaths echoing in the silence of the bathroom. And finally, she reached the window. She held the glass shard tightly, her fingers sticky from sweat. Ava carefully scraped away the dried pudding. But it wasn't a cozy job to do. Her arms growing weary from the effort, the task felt endless, but she refused to give up. Each movement, each scrape, was a step closer to her escape. She whispered to herself, "Just a little more, Ava. You can do this. You've come so far." After what felt like an eternity, the pudding sealing the window gave way. She carefully removed the large glass from the window and came down to place it on the floor once more. She stood on the toilet and used the reserve tank for support. She began to ascend. The window frame was narrow, and her slim frame allowed her to squeeze through. But in her haste, she misjudged her approach, and as she wriggled through, her hand got several scratches. And then the unthinkable happened. As she desperately pushed herself through the narrow frame, the iron frame of the window sliced into her waist, leaving a deep, painful gash. Summoning every ounce of strength, Ava pushed through the window. Just when she thought she couldn't endure the pain any longer, she managed to break free. In her haste, she lost her grip and tumbled to the ground below. A heavy thud echoed through the night as Ava hit the ground. She lay on the grass, the cool night air washing over her. But Ava couldn't afford to lie on the ground. Gritting her teeth against the pain in her waist, she quickly pushed herself to her feet. Her trembling hands were stained with blood from the cut of her waist. The darkness of the night covered the surroundings and Ava had no clear idea of the mansion's layout. She noticed glimpses of guards in black suits patrolling various areas here and there, though no one saw her till now. Spotting a tree nearby, she hid herself from any prying eyes. From her hiding spot, Ava tried to survey her surroundings. She could make out 2 cars parked in the driveway. The mansion's main gate was nowhere in sight. That meant she was at the back of the property. Gathering her courage, she decided to try to move along the walls of the mansion. It was the safest option she could think of in this state. Her trembling fingers grazed the cold stone walls as she moved. Ava turned a corner, but to her dismay, her path was blocked by a guard in a black sult. It was Kamir, and he spotted her almost immediately. "Hey, girl," he called out. Ava's heart sank as she realized she had been discovered. The guard approached her and wasted no time in announcing, "You're coming with me. 3 take you to Ibrahim. How can you escape? He'll decide what to do with you." Ava's mind raced, and in desperation, she pleaded with Karnir, Please, you don't understand. You can't take me to Ibrahim. I didn't choose to be here. I was kidnapped, and I need to go, please." Kamir listened to her pleas. His gaze softened, but his intentions were far from pure. His original orders were clear, too. Hand Ava over to his boss, Ibrahim. However, another plan began to take shape in his mind. Ava was a valuable pawn, and he knew she could be used to weaken Ibrahim in the future. Kamir had been sent from Ibrahim's Enval gang, and he was doing job as a guard in the Rahman mansion. Kamir thought his original boss would be pleased to hear that he had managed to get close to the girl who meant so much to Ibrahim. Kamir held Ava's hand and moved to the corner. He leaned closer to Ava and whispered, "I can help you escape from here, but it'll be on my terms. You'll need to trust me." Ava was taken aback. The guard's sudden change of heart surprised her. She believed he was helping out of pity. She believed the guard is showing mercy to her. Ava nodded and whispered, "Thank you. Just please, get me out of here." Kamir led the way along the mansion's hidden pathways and through secret passages that were well away from the mansion's CCTV cameras, and Ava followed Kamir closely. Though Ava's steps aren't fast as Kareem's, her wound made her moves more slow. Kamir whispered as they moved, "Stay close. We have to avoid any other guards. They won't hesitate to report your escape to Ibrahim. Once she's outside, she'll go to the woods." Ava nodded in agreement. She was determined to do anything for her freed. She made her steps quickened, but her body ached with every steps. They were guided solely by the glow of the moon. Kamir led Ava towards a looming boundary wall that was to be their best chance of slipping away from the mansion unnoticed. Ava summoned her remaining strength and began to climb the wall. Kareem helped her a little, not too much. He didn't want to touch Ibrahim's woman. The rough texture of the bricks scraped at her hands and feet, but she was determined not to let pain hold her back. She winced in discomfort, her injuries protesting with each movement. Slowly but steadily, Ava made her way up the wall. Kareem didn't cross the boundary wall. He stayed inside the mansion. Kamir whispered, after coming down, "You'll straight go to the woods." "Okay, I'll come in 5 minutes." Ava nodded and jumped to the other side on the ground. The world them. Ava took a moment to breath. Finally I'm free. Outside the mansion's walls stretched before. She started to run, as fast as she could. The dim streetlights overhead bathed her path. Just as she was about to cross the street and went towards the woods, a sudden, jarring impact brought her to a halt. Her heart pounded in her chest, and for a moment, she thought she had collided with a wall. But it wasn't a wall that had stopped her. She staggered backward, dazed, confused, not sure what she had run into. Then, her eyes focused. To her horror, the obstacle turned out to be none other than her captor, Ibrahim Rahman. Under the intense glare of the streetlight, Ava could clearly see his face. And disoriented, for a moment, she was. Ibrahim looked down at her, and for a split second, Ava's world seemed to freeze. Her breath caught in her throat as she took a couple of steps back, realizing she had been caught. Ibrahim's voice, calm and almost casual, broke the silence. "You're quite a good runner, Ava. I'm impressed." Ava wanted to respond, to say something, but she found herself at a loss for words. She had been so close to freedom, and now her captor stood before her. Ava's heart pounded in her chest, and her breaths came in shallow gasps as she stood there, face to face with Ibrahim. She mustered the courage to speak. "Please, let me go, Mr. Ibrahim. I won't tell anyone about you. Just please, let me go." His response was chillingly matter-of-fact. I didn't kidnap you with the intention of letting you go later, baby girl. Tears welled up in Ava's eyes as she fought to maintain her composure. She couldn't let herself break down in front of him. You can't do this to me. I have a family, a future ahead of me. How can you kidnap me and just lock me in a room? Ibrahim took a step forward and Ava instinctively moved backward, her heart pounding in her chest. You're right, Ava, this isn't right. But I have an offer for you, he said, his tone almost nonchalant. Ava found her voice again. An offer? Ibrahim nodded, and his lips curried into a smile. You can lead a normal life, Ava. But there's one condition, he revealed, his eyes locking onto hers. You have to marry me. Ava's world came crashing down in that moment. She stood there blankly. She was unable to understand the words that had just been spoken. Ibrahim's proposal left her utterly stunned. How could she even consider such a proposition? She stammered, You can't expect me to agree to this. This is unthinkable. Ibrahim's eyes bone on hers. He seemed almost indifferent to her refusal. Ava, after marriage, you can have everything, he stated calmly. Wealth, protection, anything you desire. I'll treat you like a queen. Ava's frustration deepened as she shook her head vigorously. I don't want your wealth, protection, or anything you can offer, she retorted. I just want to go home, to be with my brother. You can't keep me here against my will. Ibrahim didn't say. He never faced no for any answers. He belonged to a world where everyone agreed to his orders. But in front of Ava, he couldn't be too cruel. And the situation took a different turn, when Faisal and Samir had brought Kamir, who was now in their custody. They both turned their gaze towards Kamat. Ava's heart sank as she realized that the guard who helped her had been caught. His hands were bound by a rope. Faisal wasted no time. This man helped Ava escape from the mansion, Ibrahim. She wanted to vouch for Kamir, to tell them that he had only helped her because she was in danger. But the words couldn't escape from her throat. She helplessly looked at Kamir. Ibrahim's face remained stoic. Ava, I can end this right now. All you have to do is agree to marry me. She met Ibrahim's demand with a trembling voice. I won't marry you. I can't. Ibrahim's patience seemed to wear thin, and he signaled to Samir and Faisal. If words won't persuade you, he said, perhaps other methods will. Before they proceeded, Samir took a piece of cloth and roughly placed it over Kamir's mouth to muffle his cries. Faisal and Samir flanked Kamir. Their faces didn't contain any kind of sympathy. Kamir was defenseless as the first blow struck, sending a shockwave of pain through his body. The muffled groans behind the cloth covering his mouth, the only proof to his suffering. Ibrahim's voice cut through. Ava, I've given you a choice, he said. Accept my proposal, and this ends. Otherwise, you will witness the consequences. Ava watched in horror. Her resolve remained unbroken, and she couldn't bear the sight of the man who had helped her being beaten. Desperation welled up inside her, and she attempted to move toward them, to stop the brutality, but Ibrahim swiftly reached out and grabbed her arm. You're not going anywhere, Ibrahim declared. Please, stop this, Ava pleaded with Ibrahim, her voice a trembling cry. He helped me. He's innocent. You can't do this. Faisal and Samir continued to beat Kamir, and Kamir's muted groans of pain and the muffled thuds of each impact seemed to echo the empty street at the night. Faisal, his voice laced with cruelty, taunted Kamir. You should have known better than to cross Ibrahim, Kamir. Samir, equally merciless, joined in. Ava may have some pity for you, but it won't save you from the consequences of your actions. Ava's tears flowed freely as she bare witness to the brutality. Her heart ached for Camille, who had risked everything to help her escape the mansion. She struggled to break free from Ibrahim's grip, but the more she resisted, the tighter his hold became. She was no longer willing to tolerate the pressure and manipulation that Ibrahim was subjecting her to. "How can you even think that I would marry you?" she spat out. "You can't force me into it by beating the guard in front of me. I'll never say yes." Just as Ava voiced her defiance, Ibrahim issued an abrupt order: "Faisal, Samir, leave him." Faisal and Samir halted in their tracks. The abrupt end to the beating was met with a heavy silence on the streets. Samir and Faisal both stepped away from Camille, their faces bearing the exhaustion of their ruthless actions. Camille, on the other hand, was left battered and broken, unable to stand after enduring the relentless beating. Ava hoped that Ibrahim had changed his mind, that perhaps there was a glimmer of humanity left in him. Her hope was short-lived as she turned her gaze toward Ibrahim. Her eyes widened in horror when she saw him retrieve a gun from his pocket. With one hand still tightly gripping Ava's arm, he raised the Freedom with the other. The gun gleamed in the bright street light. In an instant, Ibrahim fired, not once, but 4 times, each shot ripping through the air with a deafening roar. Camille's body jerked with the impact of each bullet, and he fell to the ground. His lifeless form crumpled to the ground and a pool of blood forming around him. Ava was paralyzed by the shocking violence. Horror gripped her as she watched the life drain from the man who had risked everything to help her. His eyes now stared lifelessly into the abyss. Ibrahim forced Ava to face him, her red eyes locked onto his enigmatic gaze. She was frozen with fear and shock. He spoke, his voice calm. "You've seen what I'm capable of, Ava. If you don't agree to our marriage this time—" He paused. "I can kill your brother, Alara, just as I killed Camille." Aves couldn't bear the weight of his threat. All the things were too much for her to bear. The world spun around her, and her vision blurred. Her eyes rolled back, and she slumped forward. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and Ibrahim caught her before she crumpled to the ground. Ibrahim's room was a stark reflection of his character, adorned with dark wallpapers and heavy, imposing furniture. The tube light overhead cast a bright glow all over the room. Ava lay unconscious in the large bed. Beside her, Ibrahim had taken on the role of caretaker, a stare contrast to the ruthless figure he had shown before. He checked her vital signs, ascertaining her pulse and breathing. Her pulse was faint. His fingers were gentle as he began treating the wound on her waist. His touch was gentle as he cleaned and dressed it. On the sofa behind the bed, Ali's Brishend mother was thinking something. In silence, her eyes fixed on ours, and it was looking like she. While working on Ava's wound, Ibrahim glanced at his mother and asked, "What are you thinking, Mum?" Alia sighed, her eyes never leaving Ava. "Ibrahim, you didn't have to do all this in front of her. Ava knows nothing of our world." Ibrahimus, however, remained steadfast in his decisions. "It's better she learns our reality now." Ava waved a knife a mummage. "I had planned this long before, Mother. Everything happened according to my plan. Camille was a stain that I needed to erase. It's a perfect setup. 2 birds were killed with 1 stone, Brahim explained. "Do you believe Ava will agree to marry you?" his mother asked. Ibrahim, now finished with tending to Ava's wound, straightened and stepped away from the bed. He answered confidently, "When she regains consciousness, she will say yes." Ibrahim moved toward the door, prepared to leave the room. But Alia, consummate and Cuticus halted his accent with final question, "How can you be so confident? What if she says no?" T. Braham paused, turning to face his mother. "There are Han Masons, Mum. First, Ava loves her brother, and she'll do anything to save him. Second, she'll marry me because she hates me. Take care of Ava, Mum." With that, Brahim left the mum, leaving Alia alone with Av's. Though Ali's was Ibrahim's mother, but she couldn't predict anything about Ibrahim's gun. Only Ibrahim knew what he had to do or what not. The new day was marked by a sky covered in a thick blanket of grey clouds, hung in the air, as if the heavens themselves are undecided on whether to weep or spare the world. How Ibrahim slapped the night in different room as Ava and his were their last might. He emerged from the bathroom, his body glistening with the water droplets. His upper body was bare, revealing a physique sculpted with taut muscles and six-pack abs. Droplets of water clung to his dark hairs, tracing a path down his chiseled chest and disappearing beneath the waistband of his boxer shorts. He moved and opened the close to select Fizz attire for the day. A crock at the door caught his eye and Che. He didn't move from Foo's Puman, instead inquiring from Amoid the room, "We is it?" A familiar voice from outside the room responded, "Ava Eater's woken up. She's asking to talk to you." Ibrahim milled at the news and moved to open the door. Samir stepped into the room. Ibrahim asked while closing the door, "When did she wake up?" "I checked on her at dawn, and she was still asleep." Samir settled on the bed and reached for the air conditioner remote. As he fiddled with the settings, he replied, "Just about an hour ago. Mum tried to feed her some soup, but when I went to check on her, she threw an empty coffee mug in my disaction. Fortunately, it missed my handsome face this time too." Samir showed his hand, revealing a slight red mark where the mug had grazed his skin. Ibrahim nodded in understanding, and a wry smile tagged at the corners of his lips. "Wonder what she'll throw at me when she sees me." Samet playfully ceased, "Maybe a knife." After getting dressed in a black suit with a crisp white shirt, Ibrahim made his way towards his room where Ava was. The door was no longer locked, a subtle indication that she was no longer a captive but had willingly chosen to stay. He entered and greeted her with a soft, "Good morning, baby." Ava, sitting on the edge of the bed, held a glass of water in her trembling hands. Her gaze met Ibrahim's, and the memories of the previous night rushed back like a tidal wave. She clenched the glass tightly. The image of Kamir's selfless so-called help, the extremely shots from Taram's gun and the haunting sight of Kamir's hellish body were etched in her mind. She closed her eyes momentarily, as if trying to dismiss the horror, but the trauma of last night would continue to haunt her for a long time to come. When AVW battled with her recollections, Ibrahim had already taken a seat on a plush sofa in the room. Aval's gaze settled on Ibrahim. She knew what she needed to do. She took a deep breath and uttered the words Ibrahim had been waiting for, "Till marry you." A smile of triumph and satisfaction graced Ibrahim's face. He had imagined her decision, and that it was official. His plan was coming to fruition. He nodded and replied, "Tomorrow is our wedding." Ava gently placed the glass of water on the bedside table before continuing, "Dud have some conditions." Ibrahim leaned forward, placing his hands on his knees as he listened attentively. "Tell me your conditions. For you I am willing give my life, baby gear." Ava gathered her courage, taking a deep breath before she laid out her conditions. "First," she began, her voice steady, "you won't harm Alara or anyone who's close to me." Ibrahim replied, "As long as they don't pose my threats to us, they won't be harmed." Ava proceeded with her second condition: want to continue my studies. That is non-negotiable. Sexual contact. Ava took a moment, choosing her words carefully. Her gaze remained steady. You won't touch, we won't have mammed. Ibrahim nodded in agreement. Of course, you can continue your studies. What's the third condition? Ibrahim couldn't help but tease, a playful glint in his eyes as he cusped, so, after marriage, can't touch you. Jews. That mean before marriage, I can. Ava was taken by his response. She looked at him in disbelief. She responded firmly, not even before. Mansage. Ibrahim leaned Hakima the plush sofa, a sly smile playing on his lips. So, you're denying me from the rights of a husband. Ava leaned her head back against the headboard, a smirk playing on her lips. She responded mockingly, well, doesn't that suit you perfectly? You are going to marry the forcefully and it'll be your punishment. You can never conquer my heart, nor my body. I won't let you to use me. Ibrahim rose from the sofa and approached towards Ava, who sat on the edge of the bed. He closed the distance between them, stood before he spoke. Accept all your condition, baby girl. But there will be no desert between us, even though our relationship won't be like a normal ain. Ava met his men's gaze. She nodded firmly, deal. For a moment, they simply stared at one another, as if they want to say many things but don't know where to start. Finally Ava broke the stillness, asking a question that had been on her mind. Didn't your hand tremble when you read last night? Ibrahim, seated beside her on the bed, answered with confidence, never. Ava hesitated for a moment before asking another pressing question, have you killed other people before? Seemed like she wanted the answer as on. Ibrahim didn't flinch at the inquiry, as if discussing everyday routine with Aya. So many. Anyone who betrays me. Anyone who jeopardizes my operations, they're removed from this world. Ava felt a chill roost down her spine. She had never imagined she would be bound to anyone who had committed such heinous acts. Will you kill me, too, like you did with the guard last night? Ava's voice trembled when she asked. Ibrahim leaned in closer, his eyes softening as he assured her, I'm known as the king of the underworld in Kuala Lumpur, and you will be the queen. No harm will come to you. To my promise, though my ways of showing love may seem cruel to you, one day, only, you will fall in love with Mo. Ava's lip trembled as she was trying not to cry in front of him. Not now. Marrying you will be the most shameful act of my life. Just marry me, Ibrahim Rahman, and I will make your life a living hell. I will never forget how you forced Ma and threatened me. I will never forget. Ibrahim smiled. No one knew what was going on H's mind. His gaze shifted to Ava's lips. They were so red. Although they were not physically close, the unspoken tension between them was undeniable. Then he sighed and rose up from the bed. I like challenges. I never say no to one. He took the first aid box from the bedside table and puts on Ava's lap. Change the dressing of your wound. With that he turned and left the room. As he closed the door behind Funt, Ava could no longer contain her leers. Her heart was heart-wrenching, her hands trembling as she wiped away the salty trails that streamed down her. Oh, brother, where are you? She mumbled through her tears, B's voice quivering. I'm missing you so much. Wasn't easy to sacrifice her own life to save Clara's it. But she did. She had never imagined that her life would take such a dark and unexpected turn. The pain she felt, both physical and emotional, was too much to bear. The ram fell gently over Kuala Lumpur, turning the city into a sparkling canvas of wet streets and buildings. The city's lights reflected on the rain-slicked roads, creating a glistening mosaic of colors. The rhythm of the falling rain was the backdrop to a tense night. In Alara's room, the dim glow of a computer screen illuminated the faces of Farah and Alara. They sat side by side, their expressions etched with worry. It had been 3 days since Ava's mysterious disappearance, and their frustration and anxiety were growing with each passing moment. Dara had been on a relentless search for any trace of Rafi Ahmed, the man he believed was responsible for Ava's kidnapping. However, his efforts had yielded no details or leads. Little did he know, the story of Rafi Ahmed was a fabricated narrative woven by Ibrahim to divert Alara's focus and keep him occupied until Ava agreed to the montage. Farah was hunched over the keyboard, her fingers flying across the keys as she attempted to hack into Ava's social media accounts. She was determined to uncover any clues that might lead them to Ava. Alara, sitting beside her on the bed, couldn't help but express his frustration. "Why is it taking so long?" Farah replied, "Hacking isn't something quick, Alara. It takes time, especially when we're trying to be discreet." As the screen displayed the results, Farah's face lit up with a triumphant smile. "Look, the results are here." Dara leaned over the computer, eager to see what they had found. He clicked on the latest conversation but was disheartened by what he saw. "There's nothing. Ava's conversations seem normal. There's nothing to doubt." Farah pointed out, "Look, after her disappearance, there are no new chat. It seems like she's not using social media now." Alara's brows furrowed. "Or maybe she doesn't have access to a phone. It's not surprising. Why would the kidnapper provide Ava with a phone?" Suddenly the doorbell rang, and Alara rose quickly and hummed to the main door. When he opened the door, a delivery boy stood there, holding a SITS envelope. The delivery boy was drenched by the rain outside. He extended the envelope to Alara and said, "Delivery for you, Sit." Alara took the envelope from the delivery boy's hand and thanked him before closing the door. He came back to his room and opened the envelope to find a wedding card inside. When his eyes scanned the card, his world seemed to come crashing down around him. The card displayed the names Ibrahim Rahman and Ava Lim, in elegant lettering, along with a date and venue. It was a wedding invitation. Alara's heart pounded in his chest. Farah, who had been sitting at the computer, noticed the change in Alara's behavior. She asked, "What is it, Alara?" Alara's voice was barely a whisper as he said, "It's a wedding card." "Whose wedding card?" Farah asked. Alara handed the card to her, and she too stared at the names written on it. Her confusion mirrored Alara's as she replied, "Ibrahim Rahman and Ava. But I don't understand, Aya." Ella sank onto the bed, his mind racing with questions and worries. He had been tirelessly searching for his sister and now he got an invitation to her wedding. What was even happening? He couldn't seem to understand. In the midst of his frustration, Farah asked, "Who's Ibrahim Rahman?" Alara ran a hand through his hate. He was looking so tensed. "Ibrahim is a famous businessman in Kuala Lumpur. But how did they even meet? And how could Ava marry a man who's 12 or 13 years older than her?" He asked. He had so many questions in his mind. Farah tried to bring him back to the present. She pushed the card aside and said, "Now is not the time to ponder how they met or their connection. What's important is finding out where Ava is. The fact that they sent a wedding card means Ava is with them." Alara looked at Farah but didn't reply. He turned his gaze towards window. The rain wasn't falling outside, there was a storm inside Alara too. He knew that Ibrahim Rahman was not just a simple businessman, he was involved in numerous illegal activities that had earned Hun immense power and influence. Alara couldn't wrap his head around the idea that his beloved sister, Ava, might be marrying a man like Ibrahim Rahman. How had Ava ended up in such a situation? He felt helpless, and his face turned red with anger, frustration, and despair. Farah gently took Alara's face in her hands, forcing him to meet her gaze. Alara, we need to go to their house. Maybe we can save Ava from there, and at the same time, get our answers. We can't let this go on any longer. The rain had finally subsided, and the clock on the wall showed that it was already 10 at night. In the study room of Ibrahim, Ava and Dara sat face to face on a couch. And there was Ibrahim standing beside Ava. Ava's gaze remained lowered, her heart heavy with the weight of the false story that Ibrahim had just narrated to Alara. According to the fabricated account, no one had kidnapped Ava's. Instead, she had run away from home, fearing that Alara would never approve of her marriage to Ibrahim. Though the false story protected Ibrahim's true intentions but it gnawed at Ava's conscience, making her feel like a traitor to her brother. Clutching a pen in his hand, Alara bore a storm of emotions on his face. Brows were furrowed in a mixture of anger, frustration, and hurt as he turned his gaze toward Ava. His voice, heavy with disappointment, "Why couldn't you just talk to me, Ava?" Alara's words hung heavily in the air. "Why run away, leaving me in agony for 3 long days, thinking the worst? Can you even think how much I have searched for you the 3 days?" Ava's gaze remained downcast, voice barely audible as she whispered, "I'm sorry, brother." She wasn't crying, but it seemed like her tears would burst any time. Ibrahim stepped in to try and ease the mounting tension. "Claire, we never intended to hurt you. We simply believed that due to our age difference, you might not approve of our marriage." Alara met Ibrahim's gaze. He couldn't fathom how his sister, whom he had raised like his own daughter and shared every detail of her life with, could have doubted his support. Alara again looked at Ava. "Ho has so many compliments," he commented. "Why, Ava, have you grown so distant from me that you couldn't confide in your brother about your dreams of marriage? How could you ever think I wouldn't approve?" Ava finally looked at Alara. Her eyes filled with regret and guilt. She told, "Alara, I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought you'd never understand and you'd think I was making a mistake." Alara's voice softened as he reassured her. "Ava, I can forgive any mistake you make, even if it's as grave as murder. If you truly like Ibrahim, he'll support you." Ibrahim placed a comforting hand on Ava's shoulder and said, "Thank you, Alara, for your understanding." And a single tear escaped from Ava's eyes. Alara rose from the couch. "I'll arrange for your wedding dress to be sent tomorrow morning." Ibrahim's hand remained on Ava's shoulder, and he added, "We've already taken care of everything for the wedding." When Ibrahim said that, Alara glared at him. "I may not be as wealthy as you, but I can afford a wedding dress and other needs for her marriage." Ibrahim simply replied, "As you wish. I won't interfere this time." Ava stood up, feeling trapped in her own emotions. She wanted to tell Alara that she didn't want to marry Ibrahim, to beg him to take her back to their apartment. But the words remained unspoken. She couldn't tell, she couldn't tell. On the other hand, Ibrahim thought Ava would say everything to Alara. But he didn't let his inner tension to show on his face. He stood there in composed way. But when Avenue didn't say anything, he sighed silently. Ava replied, "You can choose anything you like." Alara cupped Ava's face in his hands and gently wiped her tears. He inquired, "Do you have any specific preferences for your dress and jewelry?" The wedding just finished an hour ago. Avis stared at her reflection in the dressing table's honor in the room. She was still in het white wedding gown. Her light makeup and maroon lipstick perfectly accentuated her features, but her eyes revealed the turmoil within her. She gazed at the diamond ring on her finger. The weight of the diamond ring on her forefinger brought back the etope of the wedding sea of Alu. Her mind wandered that moment, and the imama echoed in her ears, "Do you, Ibrahim Rativiman, take Ava Liam to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for I call you for pause in sickness and in health to love re and co-cherish until death do you can." Ava had looked into Ibrahim's eyes during that moment, searching for any sign of contention or understanding. She found none. Breast, looking at Ava's yes miwad li saliska. And ko uasa lim, tako Ibrahim Rahman to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from Theo day forward for better or for worse for Nena or for Porm, in sickness heath to envy and to Chanel death ko you part. The Imam asked again. Ava had hesitated for a second that felt like an stomati. Now there was no coming back. She had reluctantly whispered, "I do." She remembered the sincerity in his gaze as he slid the diamond ring onto her trembling fingers. It marked the beginning of Hijumi mismentage she had chosen for herself, life she had been forced into. As she lived the moment in her minute, her eyes filled with sadness. Back in the present opened her eyes, and her gaze odd to the diamond ring that symbolized the reality she couldn't escape. The door to the room creaked open, and Ibrahim walked in. He was dressed in his wedding black suit. Ava quickly wiped away the tears that had welled up her eyes. She couldn't let Ibrahim see her cry. Ibrahim stood in a distance and cast his gaze upon Aksa, admiring her in silence. After a moment, he couldn't help but state, "You look beautiful at the wedding." Laffa tra situation fra compliment fell vis be Ronnie, asked chose Cot to respond and focused on song he wearings, and then she caught his refaction in the memoir. Noticed he was unbuttoning his shirt. Fanik Ort and Ava quickly tumad to face Brahim, her voice shaking as she asked, "Why are you undressing here in the room?" Ibrahim paused for a moment, HVO shirt undone halfway. With a hint of a smink, he asked, "Where shall I go, baby?" "Gel." Ava retorted, "You can change inside, why are you changing here in my room?" Ibrahim feelingly removed his shirt, revealing his well-built, muscular body under the bright glow of the tube light. He smiled and said, "This is my room." Shiaksola thoughts raced. She had been live in FRS 1000 says she lost Komskiteva Allah shitted in Agiz to the Akal, but give me another room. I won't share a room with you. Frahim walked in from of the minarting. Phil's reflection was showing on the mirror, then he stated, "We are husband and a Alumni's need live under the same roof and in the same tomb." Avenue looked at their reflections in the mirror. She clenched her fists and reminded him, "You agreed to my condition. That there won't be any physical contact." Ibrahim casually put his hands in his pants pockets. "Baby girl, that doesn't mean we have to live in different rooms. Didn't marry you to live in Soparatoli." He then coots foos from Foo's pocket and shows Ayad, you smo over Udine Pom Avenue tum towards Thraben, her gaze felling un his hand, which held her phone. She quickly SB bedded and content. "If we to live in the same room, then you can't mow that." Ava pointed to his upper knackered hoodie. Frahim waned on Ava, placing TV2 AMs on the dressing table, effectively mapping her and Ava instruity Lasnad away from him. With a teasing tone, Ibrahim said, "While I can't promise to cover up all the time. After all, you're my beautiful wife now, and you have to get used to view. Ava gulped nervously. Don't forget our condition, me Ibrahim. There won't be any physical contact. Ibrahim smirked. I can still have some fun with you while abiding by your conditions. We can enjoy. Ava didn't let on him. Faith his santans pushed him sway. I don't want any of your fun, don't come clear to With that, Ava left the room and went to the bathroom. Ibrahim remained standing by the dressing table, gazing at the mirror where Ava bad touched his chart while putting him. He smiled as if he could feel the warmth of her hand on his chest. Avenue read on the solar, her eyes struggling to adjust to the sunlight, coming through the window. Last night she was sleeping on the sofa while Brahim sprawled on the bed. She had kept the lighters on, trust didn't conf easily with this man. Her phone continued to ring. Daskali opened her eyes and saw that her professor was calling her. She quickly sat up on the sofa and answered the call. Ratio, Professor. The professor greeted her warmly. Hello, Ava, I heard you got man WD last night. Congratulations, Ter. I hope you're enjoying your married life. Ava clenched her jam and politely repeated, Thank you, ma'am. He professor continued, By the way, Ava, you have 2 essays full this semester, and you haven't submitted them yet. Protesa City continued, By the way, Ava, you have 2 assignments left for this semester and they haven't submitted yet. Ava's heart couldn't mention the kidnapping, so she said, I'm sorry, ma'am. I've been really busy. Professor City understood. I can give you 10 more days to submit Tom, but you must do 2 as soon as possible without thicko assignments. You won't pass this semester. Send you the topics via message. Ava replied, Suro, ma'am. 11 submit 'em as soon as possible. When do you plan to come back for your classes? I hope there won't be any issues studying from your in-laws. The professor guess. Ava assured her professor, No, Malam, there won't be any problems. I be back in class tomomo since it's Menca. Ava glanced at Ibrahim, who was still snoozing on the bod. He had placed pillow over his face, blocking out the lick she had left on all night. The professor concluded the call with well wishes. Good to hear. Have a great day, Ava. With the call was Ava and her head on the sofa. Now she had to erase all the materials of her ass tit. She gazed inward the balcony and swore and last night at the watting lated 2 times, when he was being calms that day. She saw Faisal Titty watering the garden and talking with the helpers. The rose from the sofa and made her way to the balcony. The balcony was positioned close to the ground, making it easy to communicate with onions below. Faisal spotted Ava on the balcony and handed the water hose to Anelpa, then approached Noor. He was wearing a black hoodie and black pants. He also have well-built body like Ibrahim and Samir. He greeted Ava warmly. How are you, state law? Ava's was shed by the time and lightly gripped the balcony railing. She snorted, Favor me that. Faisal raised his hands to stop her anger. Kali mumming, Okay Ava sister, is that Fino? You see I can't call you by your name, it's just not right. Avenue, still frustrated, asked, What's your phone number? Faisal replied, In your phone. Ibrahim already saved everyone's numbers you might need. Avala way wine, this man swant thea my phone. Faisal chuckled and gave a snake forward, This man is now your husband. Av's shugad and shank her head. She checked her phone and indeed tran that many new numbers had been added to her contacts. Willow looking at the phone. Ava asked, Are you Ibrahim's brother? Not blood related, but they consider each other brothers. They're friends and business partners. Faisal explained. And Stumail, too added. Faisal just nodded, and at the moment, he received a message on his phone. Taking it out of Miss Puckett, he graced at Ava's message. Ava informed him that she had sent money in a list of hams she needed. Faisal suggests Esther, as you don't need to send money. You can just let us know what you. However, Faisal didn't finish his sentence because he noticed Ibrahim had silently approached Ava from behind. Ava also became aware of Faisal Gazo and turned around to find Ibrahim standing tears behind her. Even though he had just woken up, Ibrahim still looked exceptionally handsome as ever. Ibrahim inquired with a sleepy source, "Can't you tell your husband what you need? Give me your review about the new couple." Farah lay on her back, gazing at the ceiling as her thoughts spiraled into a labyrinth of questions and doubts. 2 bouquets, she muttered to herself, thendong back to the days when Ava Sasselv those missed NSTOWARE as someone else. Farah wondered. Those sent by Ibrahim Rahman. And when Alara Haq detected the tan scent of a man's cologne in Ava's mem, could this scent have belonged to Ibrahim or someone? Why hadn't Ava confided in her best friend, someone Ava had shared her secrets with for pairs? They shared secrets of each other about everything. Their appearance from home bad further deepened the mystery. Farah wondered whether Ava had genuinely run away. Did she really run away? Farah mumbled. It all seemed surreal, like something out of a movie. Farah was so tense these days that she couldn't bring herself to attend the ceremony. If she had attended, Farah would have undoubtedly unleashed her fury at Ava for keeping such a significant part of her face secret. But in the silence of the room she couldn't help but feel that there to the story than met the eye. While lost in her thoughts, Farah's phone chimed, indicating a new message. She picked up her phone and saw a message from Flars. It read, "Dome to my apartment, in an hour, and bring your laptop." Ibrahim couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy when he came to know that Ava hadn't informed him of her shopping needs that had extended sender back to Faisal. Ceterain to Phi active role on providing for her. He dozed in take Ava shopping for the terms she needed. He watched Ava as she browsed through the items as other day. Instead he had no telephone shelves while standing near the counter. He wasn't wearing canal lock that day, wearing an off-white shirt and toe. When a satisfied smile graced his lips as he observed Ava's every move. He couldn't help but admire her long jet black hair, captivated fontanerie and more. It felt like he was falling in love with her. The shop they entered was a familiar one for Avenue. She had been a regular customer for years and had developed a good relationship with the shop owner over the years. The aged namer was sitting behind the counter scared. "When did you two get married?" Ibrahim summed toward the owner and replied, "Just yesterday." The owner nodded in approval. "Ava is a sweet girl. I've known Frey since she was 12 years old. She used